I won't ask you any.
It's the same one.
Oh.
I just updated it on the slide deck. You don't get a new one.
Oh.
With Google Slides, it's just automatically updated.
But you got a new message when you updated it.
I did not send it to you.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Because I heard it.
It should have been replaced.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Just make sure he was comfortable.
No, nobody's back.
Do we have a seat for Paul Green? That's it.
Yeah, there's right there.
Chair.
You got it?
Who's next to Michael? Oh, okay.
Sorry, Paul.
Maybe a chair, Paul. All right.
That's sorry.
I can stay.
Watch yourself, Paul. No, you're not standing.
I know that.
I don't feel
Just
like I'm
down on the
doing something
wire.
wrong.
Wait for Paul. Yeah, wait for him to come back.
We could actually put 3 more chairs here.
Is the agenda open? Yeah.
Behave, Deb. You got the lawyer next to you.
Yeah.
Behave.
I feel like I'm in church and jail.
You building it? I guess you're keeping an eye on Adam tonight. You're keeping an eye on Adam tonight. I'm free from you. I'd like to bring this meeting to order, December 16, 2019. Mr. Calavia, you have a roll call, please?
Mr. DiDonato.
Present.
Ms. Linthorst.
Here.
Ms. Long. Mr. Markulek.
Here.
Ms. Murray.
Here.
Ms. Riley.
O'Reilly, here.
Oh, right. Mr. Sawicki. Ms. Tracy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News, the Times, and the Trentonian on January 8, 2019. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being videotaped for the purpose of board review, future reference, preparation of minutes, and viewing on Comcast Channel 19, Verizon Fios Channel 32, and the school district website, www.hvrsd.org. May we all rise for the flag salute, please. Did we put the signage? On the, oh, on the. Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say it, but, yeah. Oh. I would like to welcome all of you to our last meeting of 2019. First, I would like to identify a new procedure that we will be utilizing to ensure that our public open comment continues to be orderly and that we have correct documentation and spelling of those who come to speak. The open public comment sign-in sheet will be available up at the podium, we will call speakers in the order that they have signed in and continue to have speakers add their names to the list as they choose to speak. Two important presentations were held in our district since our last board meeting. One regarding optimum school start times, and one focused on safety and security to ensure the community is informed and involved in our responsibility for the well-being of our students. If you missed those presentations, you may view the information on our website under district and under parents respectively, and view on Facebook Live recordings that allowed the community members to view the meeting and write in questions if they could not attend in person. We have several important presentations ahead. We're excited to hear from our student representative to the board and recognize our three board members completing over a dozen years of service in our community. Michael Markulek leaves us with 2 full terms on the board and after service on the Hopewell Township Committee. And board members Susan Pilara and Pete DiDonato. They all have provided us with their expertise, experience, passion, and countless hours of attention to our district. We will also be reluctantly accepting the retirement of Kimberly Rennick, an educator that has been part of our Tollgate Bear Tavern and Timberlane communities, having educated all 3 of my children over her 20 years of service. Our agenda this evening also includes a presentation of our annual audit and budget discussion. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of November 4th and November 18th?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. And next up, hey Ed.
So late last month, the girls had their Powder Puff football game with the class of 2021 beating out the class of 2020. Fall sports came to a close, and winter sports are starting up now. In regards to fall sports, our girls soccer team was awarded the CVC Team of the Year, with Charlotte Hare winning CVC Player of the Year and Coach McGinley winning CVC Coach of the Year. In football, Terrence Peterson was awarded the 2019 12th Man TD Club Lineman of the Year award. And in regards to winter sports till now, the swim team has started their season strong with a victory over Trenton at the first home meet of the season. Additionally, last weekend, the HVCHS Thespian Troupe won over 18 awards last week at the NJ Thespian Festival, including Caleb Briggs being selected for the first ever NJ State Show, our theater tech team winning first with the fastest time in festival history for tech relay, and Jean Turnbull winning the NJ Governor's Award for Makeup Design. Coming up this week, actually, Student Council is hosting our Spirit Week, and on Friday we will have our Winter Pep Rally. And I think I can speak for every student that we're really excited for winter break and the start of the new year.
Thank you very much, Zayed. Any questions regarding anything?
Do you want to put them on the spot?
I do.
So as is our tradition and following along with our student rep, are you ready to share? Are you comfortable sharing?
Sure. Last month, actually, at the end of November, I was awarded a letter of assurance from the Naval Academy that. Thank you. So I'm just waiting on my nomination letter from either the Congresswoman or the 2 senators, and I'll be in 100%.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, I already said my words.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
He wasn't happy about
Yes,
it.
yes, yes.
I was happy.
All right, do you want to do the audit first, Mr. Calavita, and then we'll go into budget? Why don't we do that? We'll switch it up a little bit if you're all right. I'm going to yield my time to the auditor, and then we'll finish up with budget, since they're here, and I think they have another audit to present.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for the introduction to present the audit for this year. I would like to thank the administration, Dr. Smith, and Bob Calavita, as well as his staff, for all the assistance they gave us during the audit process. It is a very long, arduous process. We look at a lot of information. We do ask for a lot of information to look at, and we're here for probably 4 to 6 weeks, spread out over 2 times during the year. So again, I want to thank you for being here, and again, I'll go over a brief presentation since we did meet with finance, went over much more of the detail. So I'll give you a high-level overview and then again open it up for questions. I think overall the audit went very, very well this year. The good audit results, a good financial position. Last year, if you remember, the audit wasn't issued until February because we were waiting for benefit information from the state. They did get it to us late again this year, but much earlier than in the past, and they moved the deadline from 12/5 to 12/23. Your audit report is done, so it'll be within the 12/23 deadline and filed in accordance with the time frame. The most important component of any audit is the opinion that the audit firm places on the financial statements. It will be it's an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. It's the highest level of opinion that can be placed on the financial statements, and basically represents that the information we requested was provided to us, and we were able to verify the information that was presented in order to render the opinion. I also want to congratulate the district and the board for the 7th consecutive year of receiving the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from International ASBO. There's about 22 districts in the state that received that award out of the 600 plus. So again, it's a very good, prestigious award, and again, congratulations to Bob and the board. From a financial statement perspective, just looking at your fund balance overall dropped about $2 million from the prior year. Much of that is because you used some of it as part of the budget process. At the end of 2018, you had about $1.4 million of fund balance in excess of 2%. At the end of 2019 fiscal year, you do not have any dollars in excess of the 2%. So in order to budget in the future, you'll have to utilize funds from the current 2019-20 fiscal year. You do have funds set aside in various reserves that are allowed by the state, that being your capital reserve and maintenance reserve. Your capital reserve has about $5.4 million at the end of June, and none of that has been budgeted in 1920 as of this point. And then you also have a maintenance reserve of just over $90,000 to be used for maintenance type purposes going forward. From the perspective of findings, there were 2 minor findings this year. One pertains to a board approval of an emergency declaration, and the second one was just more timely deposits on funds in some of the student activity funds. So overall, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, no material findings, good overall financial position. So again, at this point, I'd like to open up if anybody may have any questions. Thank you.
I did have one question.
Sure.
And thank you for taking the time with regard to this. I did have one question with regard to the capital reserve. You mentioned there's about 5.4 million in there.
Yes.
My recollection was after we went through the budget process, we had about 3 million left after using some of it last year. I see here that we moved about almost $2 million into there for the board resolution in June. My recollection, and I had questioned this in June, was that I thought June we had authorized it, and if funds were to be moved into that account, the board was going to be notified of that. I don't recall being notified that was going to occur, Bob.
We did that at a board meeting in public. We had a discussion, I don't know, over the summer. It was August. We sat and we said we were going to go through, and we said, are we good with this resolution? And we had a straw poll and said we were good with that. We didn't need to do a formal resolution, but we did as a board discuss, and we had a straw poll done where we agreed to make that deposit up to $2.5 million.
In June, we had authorization to authorize you to make up to $2.5 million, but at the time, my recollection was we'd be informed. I don't recall that straw poll you're talking.
You remember, it was the night we talked about the possibility of using some of that money to put towards the debt, to pay down debt. And at that night, it was agreed that we would put the money into capital reserve, but we wouldn't appropriate any of the money towards debt until a later date.
Okay, I'll have to look. I don't recall that specific in terms of it being used for that particular purpose. I remember us discussing that as a possibility. I don't recall that being discussed as a specific action, so I have to look that up.
Well, it wasn't an official. No, it wasn't an official board action. It was more of a straw poll. We didn't need another resolution to do it, but we discussed it as a board, and as a board agreed that we should move forward in that direction. So it wasn't an actual resolution.
Okay. Thank you.
So would it be helpful to talk about that money that went in there and what we need to do to possibly use that money? That would require the board to approve.
Well, any withdrawals from the capital reserve require a full board resolution to withdraw and a purpose.
But those purposes are payment of debt.
Could
or
be
paying
one of
debt,
them.
Yeah, because that's,
But yes.
Okay, but I guess then the follow-up question was, okay, because this says the activity of the capital reserve account through June 30th, 2019 reflected this. So if we approve that transfer in August, why is it listed as having occurred by June 30th, 2019?
Because the resolution has you, as a board, reserve up to that amount pending the results of your audit. Once your audit comes in, then it becomes, that is the amount that's the mechanism the state places on depositing those monies. And that's why in August, when Scott said that we have this much money, you could put up to this amount into capital reserve, we had that discussion at that board meeting.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just saying it seems a little bit odd that you could authorize up to $2.5 million in June, but then you make a transfer in August, but it's reflected in your June 30th accounts for a different amount than the $2.5 million. So that seems a little confusing.
Most districts will do a resolution in June up to a maximum, and then somewhere along the line, when the audit gets finalized, because you're basing it on estimates at that point in time, so when the audit gets finalized, we may pick up audit adjustments and so forth. You may not have that much there, you may have more than that there. So at that point in time, what districts do is they approve the resolution in June, which is required, and then when the audit gets wrapped up, you see the actual numbers, and that's when the final number would be put wherever you want it to go. The important thing for the state perspective is the resolution that was done in June
Okay,
that represents how much you can put up to.
okay.
Any other questions for the auditor? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good holiday.
thanks. We'll do budget, and then we can recognize the vote to accept the report.
All those in favor or roll call?
All those in favor?
All those in favor of,
You need a motion in a second.
oh, thank you. May I have a motion, please, to accept the annual audit report?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries.
All right, we're going to continue with our budget discussions, just since we have had the audit, and we're going to begin our formal budget discussions after the new year. Just want to bring everybody up to speed. Do we have a clicker, Mr. Calavita, or are you doing? You got it? All right. Okay. So as we begin most of our meetings, particularly on the budget, is remembering our mission statement. It's also in the back of the, on the wall in the back of this auditorium. But we're looking at why we are here and why we do what we do as a district. And just hitting on some of the bullet points, you know, our goal is to nurture the unique talents of each individual, creating a fulfilled, socially responsible, lifelong learner who develops competence and capabilities to face the challenges of a rapidly changing world and promotes a culture of respect that values diversity. That last one is one we've really focused on in the last couple of years. And as partners, we provide sufficient resources and talented, committed staff that creates a safe environment where all students will flourish. So that's what we use to try to guide our work throughout the district. As taxpayers, moving on, the return on your investment, we think we provide a pretty good return on the investment for what we do, particularly in comparison to districts in the area. You know, we were committed to the whole child long before it was vogue or it was a catchphrase. It's something we've been doing for at least the last 10 years, is focusing on social emotional learning. As we've done that, these results have paid off, where our high school has ranked the highest that it has ever ranked in terms of New Jersey Monthly. Niche rankings, the school district is rated number 16th in the state. SAT scores, number 41 in the state. Niche again ranked us as the 185th school district in the United States. Our athletic programs, as evidenced by our girls soccer team and just how they went far into the states, but all of our programs, that's been recognized again by a third party. But also when you speak to students, their experiences in our programs, we really feel are second to none. That in comparison with, you just heard some of the awards that our art program received and our music program has received. But something I think we can all be proud of is, if you look at the list, I would argue you go back and you look at that list on New Jersey Monthly of high schools. I ask you, how many of those high schools have a working auto shop, a working wood shop, and a working engineering lab? Many districts have done away with auto shop and wood shop to focus. That's something we have really worked hard on maintaining and making sure that we have a comprehensive high school. This board several years ago felt strongly about trying to increase participation in after-school activities and voted to eliminate extracurricular participation fees. And the result has been an increase in students participating and an increase in extra and co-curricular activities, clubs, and programs. So I safely say almost 90%, sometimes higher, of our students participate in something in our district during the school year, and that's something we can be incredibly proud of. We do have excellent class sizes, pre-K through 12. As you heard before, our business office has been recognized for the last 7 years with award for their work. We addressed our facilities. We're coming to the conclusion of our referendum that was passed at a 2-to-1 margin, and we're closing out those projects. Now, if you work into middle school and high school, over 80% of our students participate in something. We've opened up opportunity for our advanced level classes for students. We have more students taking those. You look at our number of athletic teams, we have 42 athletic teams. We are obviously competitively ranked in a bunch of third-party metrics. This board again voted to look at, as space became available, full-day kindergarten, implemented that with no charge to the parents. We have 5 different world languages taught. And just last year, we implemented a late-run transportation for our students. So moving on with that, again, just kind of looking at this and highlights the good things that we are doing in our district. Moving on one more time, Mr. Suso. So things that we should just be aware of, the things that make our district unique are our small schools. Small class sizes, extraordinary number of students and programs and opportunities, extraordinary number of student support services, highly experienced teaching staff, and programs that significantly exceed state minimums. And our arts, music, world language, I would argue, you put us up against any other similar district. I think you'd be pretty pleased with what we look at. We have been discussing the budget since July. The board saw a presentation from our finance and facilities looking at that. In August, we talked about our budget guidelines. September, we talked about curriculum instruction. Dr. Therese gave a presentation about where those dollars and cents are going. Pupil services, Paulette DiNardo came in and spoke about our pupil services. Tonight, you heard about our audit and our budget discussion schedule, which I will share in a little bit. All these presentations are on our district website, which I'll show you shortly, that you can follow along. Now, this is a tentative budget discussion schedule. These dates are subject to change after the board reorganization, but you can see the board will be reviewing the budget in January, twice in February, twice in March, and twice in April. We have to submit our budget twice to the County Department of Education, once after our tentative budget hearing, which will take place sometime in mid-March, and again in late April to the county. So these, as new board comes in, they have to solidify the dates for the board meetings in the coming year, but based on last year, these are the ones. Regardless of whether the dates change, I think the board is pretty committed to having a number of public discussions for the budget, and that begins in January at our second meeting. The first meeting of the board will be a reorganization meeting, and that takes place on January 6th. After that, there'll be board discussions regarding the budget through January, February, March, and April. Something we're bringing back is our informal budget discussions. These will be absent from a board meeting. These will be opportunities to delve into the budget. We're going to do these monthly from January through April. We'll do a morning and an evening one, and that's where you can ask any question regarding the budget. We'll talk a little bit about process, how the budgets are different than business budgets. There's some of the unique challenges of school budgets. And we'll have all that, as much information. Now, it's important to note that obviously the board will be going, this is a fluid process, so numbers and things will change, but this provides an opportunity for any resident who's interested to come in and look at our budget from last year, look at our budget documents that we have going forward, including those previous budget presentations regarding curriculum instruction and facilities and pupil services, but as we move forward, making sure that people understand the parts of the budget. Again, we've done this a number of years ago, and we felt that it was a good time to bring it back. How can you stay on top of the budget? On our district website, we've had this here. It's a nice button. You press it. It's one click to get to all the budget information. So you click the one budget button, and that takes you to budget information. So we've actually already loaded that up with the presentations from this year. You could actually look at the information from previous years, but everything is there for folks to see and see where we are. This has been there each year, but wanted to make sure that people knew that it is one click away for all your budget information. So I'm happy to answer any budget questions. Not much to talk about right now, but you heard the audit, but I just wanted to outline the process and the timeline. The budget discussion schedule those dates may change with the board discretion. The budget, informal budget discussions will be led by Bob Calavita, his office, and I will be there and bringing in whoever is available in terms of whether it's a curriculum instruction question. If Dr. Therese is around, can answer some of those things, but we should have all the information available for anybody who wants to delve into the nuts and bolts or dollars and cents of the budget. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions? Okay. Seeing none. Any items of old business?
Nope, we have
Nope.
recognition.
Oh, we're skipping around.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, tonight is the time, and Mr. Calavita is going to get up, that we recognize our 3 outgoing Board of Education members. Those being Mr. Mark Yurlek, who is a 2-term Board of Education member, and Ms. Susan Polaro from the borough, and Mr. Peter DiDonato from the township. This is your last meeting with the Hopewell Valley Board of Education. I will say, and I see our new members coming on, that this is not an easy volunteer job by any means, but hopefully you've found it rewarding. We really appreciate your input and feedback. You've all provided different things to the Board of Education. I think, Susan, hopefully you've seen a increased social media presence thanks to your guidance and input. Mr. DiDonato, your use of metrics and really making sure that we are providing information and data that was easily attainable and you could understand as board members and residents. And Mr. Markulek, your knowledge and experience from the township was invaluable, and your knowledge of finances was really appreciated. And again, I know that when you were solicited to come on the board, this was told it would probably maybe a meeting a week or a couple hours, and it turned into a little bit more, but we really appreciate your time and commitment to this district. As I said, it is by no means an easy volunteer job in the community, but one I think hopefully you found very rewarding, but one, it made a huge difference in the lives of the 3,450 students we have on our rolls as of today. I really appreciate your personal guidance to us and feedback, but more importantly, I think the community should recognize your hard work and dedication and regular meeting times and all the time that you've really volunteered to this community.
It's kind of sad. Well, finance and facilities will not be the same without the 2 of you. I don't know what I'm going to do. Susan, EdCom, you've just been such a, you've really gotten in depth into a lot of areas that I don't think were really highly addressed before. I think you brought such a fresh perspective from the community. You guys are truly going to be missed. I believe that people are placed in places for a reason at particular times, and we've had to make some really difficult decisions and navigate some really complex issues. I don't think we all always agree on things, but I think that that's what's made this board such a board of the whole. I think everybody brought their expertise and their experience and their place to this board, and I think our students have benefited for that. So thank you so much.
We'll bring them up and we'll shake their hand and we'll give them their thing. So, Susan and Mike and Peter, if you could come in, we'll hand you your plaques. Thank you.
Thanks for making me do that. Of course.
So, first of all, I want to thank my peers, those that are here and those that have moved on from the school board. It's been a great experience for me. It's been a tremendous experience working with Dr. Smith and the administration, and I appreciate all the guidance, all the feedback that you've given me over the last 6 years. I certainly want to thank Hopewell Township. As most of you know, I've been at this for almost 20 years now. And it's fun. I've had a great, excuse me, a little bit of a cold, a little bit choked up. I've had a great time, both on the township committee and on the school board, serving my community. And for those of you that have just stepping up now to serve, for those of you who are interested in serving in the future, I highly recommend it. One of the proudest moments is running Boys State for the Legion. And over the last 10 years, 12 years, watching Hopewell Township going from having nobody in the service academies to, I think, 8 kids now in the service academies, a handful in the senior military colleges, and over 10 ROTC scholarships in the last couple of years. And it's great work by young men and young women who have made that happen. It's a school board that appreciates service. So I feel most proud for giving opportunities to young men and young women in an area where I have a little bit of expertise. So I thank the community again. I highly recommend get involved in public service. The school district we have, the great community we have, doesn't come for free. It comes with people coming out and serving, stepping up and doing their job. I see a former board member there in the back. I want to thank Lisa for requesting, suggesting, pushing me to get involved with the school board when I'm finished with the township committee. So just a couple quick words.
Thank you.
I think she promised 1 hour a week, maybe tops.
Oh, coming from the township committee, I knew I wasn't getting an hour a week.
She conned me too. Lisa, we had a really good meeting over coffee one day, and I'd already, like Mike said, I mean, you could give to the community and you could pay all you want, but until you are pulling up your sleeves and doing some of this work yourself, you don't really realize like the tremendous impact that you have to the community. I mean, to the administration, all the help back and forth, and I tell you, it's been it's the most rewarding experience I've personally ever had. And, I wasn't in the military, and I did want to join the military, but I feel like at one point you got to do something to give back to the community. And there's a lot of I couldn't imagine so many people that are active in our community, but really do have a lot of very active people that have wear hats in many different ways. And my role here in this district was, it was important for me to, understand and learn and see where I can give back in ways. Starting my own business and being successful doing other things like the Cub Scouts and just other sporting activities, etc. Just general stuff around the community. I mean, it's an amazing place. I want to rest my hat here until one day I retire, and who knows from there. And I'm just, I'm grateful for Bob and everything that you've taught me. I mean, Tom, all the tremendous effort that you put into this district, and then working with all of my, fellow members here. Being a part of the policy committee. I mean, you don't realize that there's so much effort that goes into making this thing work. And I'm just proud to be a part of this, and I'm grateful that the replacements are coming in, and they're ambitious like I was. I'm just happy that we have people in this community to pick up where we need them. So I'm just very, very grateful. Thank you.
Lucky to have you.
Oh, now it's my turn. Again, 1 hour. Oh, it'll just be an hour. Just a few meetings. But it's been a tremendous experience. First of all, to work with all of you. Our administration is amazing and dedicated in a way that our community and our teachers, and most importantly our students, we are so lucky to have all of you here, and we are so lucky to have a board as active and passionate. Whether we agree or don't agree, we are often able to come to really good decisions through hard and honest and authentic discussions. I also hope that I represented the borough and the often unique perspective that is Hopewell Borough within the district. And again, like my other peers, I feel so grateful to have had this experience, at times clearly extraordinarily frustrating, because I think we are all so passionate and wanting to do the right thing for our kids and our communities. And I thank all of you who have stepped up for the next round of this. And I think I speak for myself and hopefully Pete and Michael that we will always be active on some level and care so much about this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Lucky to have had you guys. Okay. Next, any items of old business? Usually don't have any, so. Now we're up to public comment. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality, and please also write it down on the sign-in sheet up at the podium. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. Public comment is now open.
Here's a pen. Lisa Wolf, Hopewell Township. I wasn't going to come up and say this, but since Michael gave me a shout out, I will thank all 3 of you for your service, who are all now retiring. And I will say that probably the happiest thing that Michael will have about retiring from the board is not having to hear this story again, which is when Michael was on the township committee, he was the mayor, and they were having some very contentious times. And they back in those olden days, people actually had a vote on the budget, and we no longer have votes on the budget. But they had a vote on the budget, and the township was going through some turmoil, and they were going to have a public question on whether they should have sewers or not, and everybody knew that that vote was going to go totally down in flames. It was like there was no question about it. And at the time, Michael was mayor, and there was 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and the 2 Republicans wanted to schedule the budget vote at the same time as the referendum vote, because they were really hoping that maybe somebody from the school district could bring some yeses out, because they knew this thing was going to fail and it was their only chance. It was like a Hail Mary. And at the time, Michael, who the Republicans really wanted him to vote with them, he ended up voting and doing the right thing for the Democrats. And the quote that was in the paper the next day was, "We are not going to put the township's problems on the school board's doorstep." And at the time, they separated the vote. The thing did go down in flames, 85% no, but the school board budget passed with flying colors because it was separate. And there is no question that that thing would have gone down if Michael had voted with the R's. So at that time, after he made everybody really angry, I said, you ought to come on the school board. And he did, and we were happy to have him since. And since I'm not going to have a lot of time, and that's not why I was coming up, I will say thank you, Susan and Pete, as well. Pete actually underestimated all he does for the community. It isn't only what he's done on the school board. He has done a ton for the Boy Scouts, for sports, for my organization, for FOVOS. He couldn't be any more community-minded if he tried. So I will just mention that. But the other thing that I really wanted to mention while I was here was a new program is going to be starting in January. I did give a heads up to some of the school board members. I am very excited about it because, is there 30 seconds left? Okay, I can do this. Because one of the things that we had really worked hard on was equity. And we're going to have an internship program that combines the Boys and Girls Club with the Hopewell kids. And that is a beautiful opportunity. And coincidentally, I met with the CEO of Boys and Girls Club last Friday, and he said that they are giving scholarships to 2 of the Boys and Girls Club kids to join our kids on the Kenya trip. So we're going to have kids from the Boys and Girls Club joining that as well. So I encourage you to look at FOVOS for that internship.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf.
Good evening. My name is Judy Niederer. I'm a lifelong resident of Hopewell Township. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I also thank the outgoing board members for their service to the community. I'm here tonight to show my support for Mark Amantia. I've had the privilege of knowing Mark for many years, and I can say that he is a man of great character, great compassion, and he has a gift that connects him with middle school students. I don't know another teacher at the middle school level who cares so much for the students as Mark. Today, it's very easy to sit behind a computer screen and talk about other people that you don't even know. We live in a society that judges others without knowing who they truly are. I know Mark Amantia and support him and his family. If you asked me what I had for breakfast 3 days ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. But if you asked me who my teachers were in this school district, I could start with my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Jasper, and go all the way through high school. Mrs. Jasper, Mrs. Majak, Mrs. Ott, Miss Hines, Miss Skirm, Mrs. Cox, Mr. Elastic, Mrs. Arbogast, Mr. Sheets, Mr. McNair, Mrs. Buttcabbage, Mrs. Crane, Mrs. Ward, Mr. Burns, Miss Skiba, Mrs. Barnhart, Miss Cullinane, Mr. Gilnitz, Mrs. Jackson, Mrs. Rosser, Mr. Nicholson, Miss Costrin, Mr. Conti, and many others. These are but a few of the wonderful teachers that I had during my years in the Hopewell Valley school system. I remember them because they had such a positive influence on my life. I remember them because previous principals and previous school boards had the wisdom and the foresight to hire only the best educators. Mark Amantia is one of those educators that was hired by a previous school board because he possessed the qualities and the character that defines Hopewell Valley teachers. He is an educator that has been a positive influence in the lives of hundreds of students. I am one of many who support Mark and hope that you, like previous boards, have the wisdom to return Mark to his position at Timberlane Middle School. It's time to return this caring, compassionate, and positive influence back to the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Niederer.
Heidi Wallenius. I live at 93 West Prospect Street in Hopewell Borough. I also would like to thank the outgoing members as well as the current members, especially my representative, Ms. Plara. I just want to say I really appreciate the time that the board is taking to look at the issue of keeping our children safe, and I've been looking over the policies, and I can see that you have given it a lot of thought, and I would encourage us to continue to do that with the new board and making sure that the administration is, basically that everything is put in place to keep our children safe. And I would also like to say to the supporters of Mark Amantia that I understand that you have known Mark Amantia for a very long time, and that he, I'm sure, has provided positive influence in the lives of many students. I have known the victim most of her life, and no child. Victims, nobody would put themselves through that. These aren't stories that are made up these just aren't stories that are just made up. These are things that were happened in plain sight, and sexual predators are not the creepy guy next door. They're not the creepy. They look and act like the friendly, wonderful neighbors that we know and love. And so I really, truly feel for the family and friends of Mark Amantia. He did nothing wrong. His family did nothing wrong. But the victim, I also feel for the victim, and I want us to just remember that. Thank you. I'm going to just write my name down. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wallenius.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Melissa Cookman. I live at 35B East Broad Street in Hopewell Borough. What Heidi said, I heartily agree with, and actually I believe I mentioned it at the last board meeting that some of the best people that we know in our lives and have done great things are capable of doing horrific things as well. And I believe I mentioned priests, coaches. I mean, the list is endless, and child predators do that. It doesn't take away from the good he did and the inspiration he provided to a lot of students, but when a mistake or a behavior comes up like this, it warrants serious consideration, which I know you're doing because you're volunteers. So you're doing this by choice, and I appreciate that, but I want us to keep that in mind. And it is a rare occasion where a victim is lying, and I truly believe that she is not lying. I know she's not lying, as best as a person can know. On the same, a question, it's my understanding from reading this stuff, and it's a lot of policies and regulations and procedures, that and what I've understood is that the school is the one who did investigations. Instead of, and I'm going to get this wrong, I don't know whether it's DIFUS, which doesn't exist anymore, or the other organization that could be doing the investigation. And I was wondering, the school did that and didn't contact possible witnesses and students that could speak up, who, it's my understanding, were willing to speak, but were not contacted. And if they were contacted by the school, and it's my opinion and others, I'm sure, that that makes it very uncomfortable for someone to testify or share their things with a not impartial group. So I was just wondering that, and where I know not details, I'm not looking for details, where the investigation, or in what stage this investigation is going on. Thank you. I'll write my name in here. It's the fastest writing I've ever done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cookman.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Hogan. I live in 17 Elm Street in Hopewell Borough. Again, thank you for your service on the school board, especially you, Susan. Thank you. I do just want to clarify some things. Just listening, this is something, I have an adult son. He's gone through a different school system. I've never had to attend a Board of Education meeting through his school system. Never had any issues. I have a lot of concerns with this. Anyway, so I do want to know, the way you speak is that you are really working for administration. To my knowledge, the administration works for the Board of Education. And please do correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't understand. We represent you, or we elect you, the board members, to represent us, the taxpayers. And it really does sometimes feel like, just being in the last couple meetings here, that I'm not sure that you as board members are getting all of the information from the school, from the administration. I'm not sure of all your policies. I work full-time and I write policy for a living, so I don't have time to look at your policy. But I will. I will sit down and look at all of your policy, and just really deciding of what is being told to you as the board, who is supposed to be representing us as taxpayers, and what is really making decisions on the administration side without your knowledge. Because I have to say, the first board meeting that I went to and I spoke at, it seemed like a lot of your board members were blindsided by the entire situation of the allegations of sexual assault, that you had no idea. But that had happened a year, 2 years prior, and that you were not informed of it. So I do have concern of what the board members are told. I cannot hold you accountable if you are not told. But what is the policy of what you're being told? Where is the line? How much power does your administration have? Who are they responsible to? Who does Dr. Smith report to? Who is his boss? I would like to know. Personally, it's the taxpayers, and as a taxpayer, you're my voice. So I expect you to be the boss and being told of all situations. Looking at your budget, I found some indiscrepancies. I was going to wait until January to bring it up, thinking that the new board members would be here to ask, but you're here. Interesting line, just gonna say it real quick. Radzicki, you're paying $5,700 a month to the family. I am going to guess they brought a lawsuit against you. You settled out of court, and you are now paying for a child for private education. Because I also know that entitlement, education entitlement, it's not $5,700. Even Ladison isn't $5,700 a month. So I am wondering what other things are going on in this school system that we don't know about. And I'll stop, and I'll continue January when we come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan.
I'm going to go ahead and write my name first. Oh, I forgot to write it. I'll do that. Okay. Hi, I'm Paul Stoltano, 6 Newell Place, Hopewell Borough. I just wanted to comment quickly. I don't have anything prepared, but on the DCP&P investigation of the matter regarding Mark Amantia, one thing I know for certain is that the victim provided a list of student witnesses, maybe around a dozen student witnesses. One of the things that I know for sure after speaking to these witnesses is that none of them were interviewed by the DCP&P investigator. Not only were they not interviewed by this investigator, they weren't even contacted by him. They were contacted by Trish Pinelli. Some of them weren't contacted at all. Now, DCP&P policy states that the investigator is supposed to interview all witnesses, eyewitnesses and collateral witnesses. In this case, he didn't interview any of them. And the regulation, the DCP&P policies also say that he's supposed to make every attempt to contact those witnesses, even going to their homes if necessary to talk to them. None of that happened here. I talked to Megan Reinking, who is the regional supervisor for IAIU. And what she told me was that school districts are not regulated entities, and they do not have to cooperate with DCP&P investigations. So in my mind, I'm going through this and I'm saying, none of these witnesses were interviewed. They weren't even contacted by the DCP&P investigator. They were contacted by Trish Pinelli. One phone call. That was it. Doesn't sound thorough to me. Doesn't sound like they made every attempt. What it to me sounds like is that the district was trying to influence the outcome of the investigation by making sure only certain witnesses were interviewed. Still haven't got a good explanation as to why those witnesses weren't interviewed and why they weren't even contacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stellatano.
Good evening, Mary Lou Ferrara, 7 Walnut Street, Hopewell Borough. Echoing what everyone said about all of the outgoing members. Thank you for everything you do. My question is based on my having watched one of the hearings, one of your meetings where this issue was first brought up of the sexual assault allegations. And what I'd like to suggest is a change in your policy of how you handle public comment. Because when people are required to give all of their questions and then they may or may not be answered, that doesn't give people a lot of confidence in how their input is being respected. So as I watched that hearing, I happened to be home. I'm writing down the questions, but many of the questions just disappeared into the night and were not responded to. Now, I know you have a policy that you don't have to answer questions. You may answer them later. You may direct someone to answer them. But it would be beneficial to know that literally every question is written down, and you would go through them and say, this question that Ms. Wallenius asked is either we're not going to answer it, we're going to direct the board to answer it, we're going to direct the superintendent to answer it, or we will answer it at some future date. Question number 2, asked by Ms. Niederer. Here's the answer. Because otherwise, people come up and they ask their questions, I'm sorry, but they don't know if it's going to be answered. And I think that would be really beneficial going forward to have that policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrara. Anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. There are a few questions regarding clarification of the investigation, which due to the fact that this is an ongoing potential lawsuit, really, I don't think there's anything that we can. Okay. And we appreciate the comments regarding how we handle our public comment. Oftentimes when there are questions of a similar nature or at a similar situation, we'll kind of answer them as a group. But we certainly can work better on identifying those as we go. Trying to think of what else is on here. I don't think there's anything else.
Well, Mrs. Hogan had several questions about
There we
who I work for, administration, how that.
Yeah.
I work for the board, so I don't know. You want me to answer that?
We both can, if you want.
Okay.
So whether the administration works for us or we work for the administration, when we are up here as a board, yes, we're here representing the people who elected us. And I do find that it works very well that there is a mutual respect between the board and the administration. It doesn't mean that we always agree. You know, when we come up before you at this point with the things that we make decisions on, many times we've been hashing that out for quite some time, whether it be at work sessions or prior meetings. So I can understand how people might see us up here and think, oh, everything, they agree on everything. It might be easier if we did, but we don't often agree on everything. We're all very different people coming from different perspectives. I think it's, I mean, I might be stepping a little bit further than I should, but I do find it very upsetting to have people question whether we have our students' best interests at heart and on our minds. You don't volunteer for a position like this when you have your own children, your own families, your own jobs, to do anything but care for and hold every single student and staff member with the highest of wellness and safety and security and care. I can assure you that every single one of us up here, whether we're up here as an administration or as a board member, has anything but our students' best interests at heart. Every single one of them.
So just in terms of logistics, I report to the Board of Education. I'm evaluated annually through that. In terms of being told to the board, something I think, and you alluded to it, Ms. Wallenius, I think you were talking about the policies. We're revising the policies, and specifically in the policy outlines what typically does already occur is the notification of the board. In this case, the board was notified well in advance prior to that meeting. But the policy revisions outline specifically how and when the board are told with this. Questions regarding the budget. If you look on the budget review, the informal budget reviews, more than happy to sit down and talk about. You can go through the bills list. We can go through item by item and do that. And also using the user-friendly budget, we can show you where all the monies go on that. I think you'll see that all the money is accounted for and the board votes on any expenditure through that. It's reviewed first by a committee and then by the full board prior to it being approved. In terms of the DCP&P investigation, the school, how we conducted those investigations, as was noted, they were brought up in the notice of tort claim. So we've been advised by our attorney that we should refrain from other than the statement that was put out by the board previously.
It looks like you covered everything. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything to remove? May May I have a motion to move the consent agenda?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Finance and Facilities, your final, Mr. DiDonato.
Yes, I'd like a motion to move, I have a donation to move. So the donations were one from Valerie Ackerman in the amount of $24,000 to refurbish the basketball court flooring over at TMS. Oh, sorry,
High school.
High school, yeah. I didn't read down the school. Then we had a couple staff members that received $1,000 each that ended up donating it back. Very great. In our committee meeting today, we talked three main areas, but one of them they found a plastic deposit in the water through some testing. So we've got a couple schools, Bear Tavern being one. It's called PFNA. It's like this. I can't really pronounce it, but it's some sort of deposit that's found in either like plastic chemicals, like fire, dehydrants, stuff like that, that somehow is leaching its way into the water. So we're instituting more of a water treatment process through through a company, and they're going to be putting in new water filtration systems, at both the source and TMS and Bear Tavern. So that's happening. Yeah. Those two schools, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and this is because they're both well water schools. So, as the water comes from the ground, I mean, this somehow leaches down into probably 200 or 300 feet down into the aquifer. I actually, my house feeds from the same aquifer at Bear Tavern, but I don't have that issue.
What's being done in the interim? It sounds like some sort of remediation has to be
So
happening. Obviously,
so as far as drinking, all of our drinking sources, we already have, fountain and bottled water systems that don't have any, even a small amount, trace amounts of this stuff. So we're already doing that at there. So in the interim, we really don't have anything that affects or impacts the kids directly.
So this is testing of the water prior to it coming through our filtration system.
Yep. So we're being a bit proactive in getting this thing taken care of. The next thing we talked about was just some general paving. I mean, we've been sort of kicking that can down the road quite a bit. We've got a couple schools that are in pretty bad shape. Bear Tavern being one, Stony Brook being another. Timberlane being another. Just with both, parking lot areas, sidewalks, etc. Bear Tavern is just above and beyond. I mean, trees growing through, some of the driving areas. It's just trip hazard, haphazard. It's in bad shape. So we're just putting together just some general planning, phasing this out for 2 to 3 years, just to see what can be done. And we obviously talked about the financial report tonight. Substantial, and I should say in a little bit more detail. A couple things to note, and that is, for 7 years, this district's gotten pretty high awards to be able to get to this level, to receive this certificate, and that is an unmodified. There were no opinions of, false reporting in any such way, shape, or form. This district is one of 15 to be nominated for 7 consecutive years. There's other schools that have been receiving it for 22 years. So this district's done pretty well with managing the budget and managing the way that the state wants you to manage the budget. So that's all I have. Thank you for letting me chair the committee.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Mr. Sawicki. Personnel?
Oh, no,
Personnel.
personnel.
Oh, sorry. Personnel.
Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Tonight in personnel, we talked about a couple of items. We have 2
retirements this evening that I'd like to mention and thank for their service. One of them, Elise mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Miss Kimberly Rennick, the sixth grade science at Timberlane, who's been in the district since 2000, as well as Miss Jane Mangino, the elementary teacher at Stony Brook, who's been with the district since 1985. We'd like to thank them for their committed service over the years at Hopewell Valley. The other item, we were reviewing a draft copy of a job description for the tradesperson groundskeeper role. This is a job description that will be on the January board agenda for approval, but we're just sort of going through the draft of that. The other thing is we were discussing the HIB report that is on the agenda this evening. And lastly, we have 2 more collective bargaining unit negotiations coming up this year. One of them is the HVNAA for the techs, as well as the HVASA, which is the administrators. These contracts are expiring this summer. However, we want to begin discussions sooner than later. So we'd like to, we're going to be reaching out to the units to see if we can get some dialogue going. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Linthorst,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Markulek, Ms. O'Reilly,
Yes.
Ms. Polera, Mr. Sawicki.
Yes, with the exception I would like to abstain on approval for substitute paraprofessionals.
Got
please. Somehow that actually coalesces lifeguards, so, yeah.
Noted. Ms. Tracy,
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato,
Yes.
Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. In the proper order, ed program.
Thank you.
For last.
We did not have a meeting today. It seems more appropriate to have those meetings when the board reorganization happens. But everything is on consent except for one item, which is some new courses. The first is life science and biology courses at Central High School, but also the expansion of the STEM program. And that was moving, that's the plan for the sixth grade to, is that right? Yeah. So I'm very excited about this. So every sixth grade student will have the opportunity to try the STEM program right before deciding, and will have that experience starting in this coming school year. So instead of just the general computer class, they will all have a STEM program to then decide if they want to go into the STEM pathway, which I think will really provide equity of access for kids who just didn't think that maybe they're STEM kids, and it'll help kids who thought they were STEM kids maybe figure out that maybe they're not. So I think it's a great opportunity. And then I just wanted to say it really has been a learning experience, and I feel very fortunate to have been on the ed committee for 3 years, but to have chaired it this year. The district is working so hard to evolve our curriculum so that it is relevant and diverse and inclusive, and it's very exciting and very important work that's being done in this district around these issues and around social and emotional learning, and I'm very excited that my children are in this district, and I'm then excited to see the pathways that this continues to go. So now I need a motion for these new courses.
Yeah, she needs a motion.
Second.
And may I have a roll call, please? Well done.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Markulek, Ms. O'Reilly,
Yes.
Ms. Polera, Mr. Sawicki,
Yes.
Ms. Tracy,
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato,
Yes.
Ms. Linthorst,
Yes.
Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Community relations?
All right, so we met last week. We discussed the project group
Yeah, Chris Herron, yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Now you're up.
Okay, great. Okay.
I was jumping ahead.
Great. Okay, can I have a motion to move the policies and regulations up for second reading, please?
So moved.
Okay, so we have a number up. Just briefly go through a list. Policy and Regulation 8630 related to employer bus driver bus aid responsibilities. Policy 8670, transportation of special needs students. Policy and Regulation 3240 related to professional development for teachers and school leaders. These were up for first reading back in November. We haven't had any changes. I don't know, we haven't received any requests for changes on those. I'd prefer to spend our time just talking about the other three, and primarily we have Policy 3281, inappropriate staff conduct. The main key things to look at are regulations 3281 and 4281 related to inappropriate staff conduct. So we discussed these back in November, and again, I really want to thank Dr. Smith, the administration, our staff, the public, and our fellow board members for their feedback and guidance to the policy committee with regard to this. You know, compared to what we had in November, we have some substantive changes, and I'll just highlight some of the key ones there. A lot of the changes we had back in November related to the definition of inappropriate conduct. We further looked at that. Dr. Smith convened a group of his administrators and staff who work in the areas that are affected by what's listed in there in terms of inappropriate conduct and contact. So based upon that, we were able to get some very useful feedback, and we've done our best to incorporate that there. Putting in some guidance related to developmental age. So I think that was very useful. You know, I think we have better definition in terms of what are examples of inappropriate contact with any student. We tried to clarify some things there. We did put in one clarification related to medical personnel needing to do examinations. So that was included there. We also, per public feedback, made sure we incorporated at appropriate times for parental or guardian notification to take place. So we put that in there. Beyond that, just in conversation today, Dr. Smith and I did have one potential change, which was we talked about reporting to the board. So basically, upon being notified, being made aware of an incident, the superintendent will contact the board president, and then at the next board meeting, the board will be informed of the situation in executive session. The one thing we wanted to note there was what it's currently stated is that we will be, do you recall where it is, Tom? Just
3C. Or C, I'm sorry, C3 at the bottom. Anonymous, respectively.
Yeah. The report shall include the nature of the report, the employee number, and then it says the anonymous suspected victim during the board executive session. So I thought that was a little bit, there was something lacking there. So what we talked about was basically just adding that what we be notified would be the school, the grade, the gender, and the
Age,
age
school,
of the
grade,
student.
gender.
Basically the same type of information we receive on things like HIB reports and suspension reports. So that would be the level of information. The names obviously would be kept anonymous. So if we could just, so I guess what we're saying on both regulations in C3, before the clause that says the anonymous suspected victim, we'll put the grade, age, gender, and was that it?
School.
And school. Okay, so school, grade, age, and gender of the anonymous suspected victim. So that would be the edit in both of the regs.
I think it's a great addition.
I like the additions that are very specific to, you know, younger students and kids with special needs. I think that's helpful. And I think getting staff input probably helped with that a lot.
Absolutely.
We convened 18 staff members, including preschool teachers, paraprofessionals,
That's great.
occupational therapists, counselors, people who are working individual with students, athletic trainer who's working with students physically.
And the key thing I'd like to say about these is we even say in here, we understand what's in here will continue to evolve, and we have made our own within policy commitment to include these regulations along with the other regulations like homework, grading, some of the other ones. We have certain regulations and policies that we commit to review on an annual basis, security, so we will be doing that going forward.
So the other thing is, the addition says staff members will receive annual guidance regarding this policy. So, what do you mean by that?
As part of their professional development, we're developing guidelines. That's one of the things that came out of this committee. Specific guidelines of what do you do when you have after-school detention and there's one student there? What do you do when you're an occupational therapist and you're with one student? The teachers are concerned and want guidance through that. So that's putting those together with help from the teachers and the Teachers Association and the Paraprofessional Association. So we can hand out and say, here, this is what you do in these situations.
Thank you.
Could we also inform members of the public if they have occasion to review the policy and have any comments or questions? What would be the best way for them to reach out to us at this point in that regard?
I would say let's contact Dr. Smith, the board president, and the policy chair.
Okay, that's worked very well.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. O'Reilly,
Yes.
Ms. Polera, Mr. Sawicki,
Yes.
Ms. Tracy,
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato,
Yes.
Ms. Linthorst,
Yes.
Ms. Long, Mr. Markulek, Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your efforts. It was
Thank you for your
lot
efforts.
to do in the last 2 months. So
Heavy
thank you.
lifting.
Thank you, everyone.
Board calendars.
I don't think you can do much.
Nope. All I see is recess.
Yeah.
Recess.
January 6th is the reorg. They
Yep.
could just
Is that
have
on there?
Yeah, it's on there.
Yep. Yes.
Our work session, which would be January 6th, usually begin at 7 and not 7:30. Are we changing, is that what it was?
That's a good
So
question.
it would be potentially the 13th.
Six is the word.
I thought our work session was started earlier because we didn't have finance before.
It's up to the board's discretion. Want to do it?
You have no vote.
Whatever.
I like starting earlier if possible because we.
Have it all day.
Especially that reorg might be long.
No, short. Reorg will be short. Are we?
We have the ethics presentation, and we have a closed session.
Right.
Yeah, we did start it at 7:30 last
Yeah.
Work sessions used to start at 7.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the January one, we always do 7:30, but I don't, doesn't bother me either way.
I can do 7.
Do 7.
Do 7. I mean, there's no committee meetings before.
How do you guys feel about this?
Can I just say the website says that these meetings start at 7:30. I went on the website today, just so you know.
That this meeting started?
And it says tonight's meeting.
It was different
Oh, yeah.
times in different places.
Oh, different.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not changed. I'm looking at the calendar. It wasn't changed.
Anything else to add? Any items of new business?
All those in favor of the calendars?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries.
Public comment?
What's that?
Second opportunity for public
Mhm.
comment.
Yep. Just getting this ready. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You're asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting, so that the matter is researched by district administration. Public comment is now open.
Hi, this one I will put my name in here. Cheryl Hogan, 17 Elm Street, Hopewell Borough. I just wanted to make a comment, and I'm not going to lie. I read the policy revision in November, but I haven't looked at it since then. But listening, could I make a suggestion to please add in there, if a child is stating that a teacher has inappropriately touched them in any way, could part of the policy be that that child is removed from that situation immediately? That was part of the problem with the Amantia. She was left in that classroom and went down 4 times to complain of inappropriate touching and still was left in that situation. So this could have really not been as bad as it was if on the first time you said, okay, even if you did not believe her, you said, okay, you are saying this to me, we need to remove you from the situation and investigate, but that didn't happen. So I would really like to see in the policy that if a child does make these claims, that they are removed from the situation. Same thing with bullying. Any HIB, we're saying that this happened, you remove them from the situation, especially in middle school where you can move them from a different team, take them off that, whatever it is, but that really is a very important part of the policy. The other I would just like to clarify, I never did say that the board didn't care. I said that if the administration is not informing the board, you have no way to do anything about what is happening. So just to clarify that, I never accused anyone of that you didn't care. So please do not misunderstand me. But anyway, that is my policy suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan.
Melissa Cookman, 35B, East Broad Street. I don't remember where I live. I'm so frustrated by this whole process, and I understand that it is a legal issue, and I respect that and understand it. But my question was, where are we in the investigation? And an answer could have been, this teacher has been removed. I mean, that is public. That could be shared with the public. I realize you can't share details, but where is this? Is he ever coming back? Is it being investigated? Is everybody covering it up? I mean, this is so alarming and frustrating that, and you know, if one student had it happen, 10 students had it happen. Maybe not with him, but another teacher. And I find the lack of information, and I understand I don't want to know the details of what the lawyers are saying and who's doing what, but you all owe us that. I do not have students in this school district. I have never had students in this school district, and I never will. And based on this, I wouldn't trust it. I know it's a great school district. I know so many kids from here, and they're smart, and they're kind, and they're good. And this is an example of one who is being underserved and misrepresented and was not treated the proper way. And Ms. Hogan's suggesting that a student be removed, and I think that's fine when it's a teacher on teacher. This is slightly separate. When it's student on student, the student that is bullied is inevitably removed. They should not be removed. The child that is creating the situation. I have heard more times where, well, they'll just sit at another lunch table, the child who's being bullied. No. So I don't think children come first necessarily in situations like this. And I really want you to think deep and hard. This is a horrible situation. And it's a horrible situation for everyone, for people who care about anybody in this place. But it's just wrong that we're not getting any answers at all. I mean, any. A clarification that I asked for is not that difficult to answer. And it's just, it comes back down to, well, the lawyer says we can't. Well, pretend it's your kid. Just pretend it's your child, your son's, or your daughter being touched, and you know that child is telling you the truth. And you know that because you know that child. And we're sitting here letting it go on and continue. And you guys couldn't even tell me the teacher was removed. And I think that's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cookman.
Hello, Heidi Willenius, 93 West Prospect Street, Hopewell Borough. One further thought on the policy, and this may be for another policy, and I'm not sure, what goes in what box. But there's also the issue of all the adults that witnessed not the actual physical assault, but the inappropriate behavior. And so I think that in your staff training and in your policies, there should exist a policy that if adults are witnessing behavior that they, I don't know how to draft this policy, I'm asking you to do that, and I would be happy to provide input. But I believe that there had to have been adults witnessing what was happening that were not speaking up and were not saying something. And I know I heard somebody else at an earlier meeting say, well, the kids witnessed it too. The kids model what the adults do. So I think that every adult witnessing that has to bear responsibility, and that should be in the policies so that we can ensure protecting our children down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Willenius.
Kate Ham, Reed Road. I'll fill out my name in a little bit. Couple of things that I just wanted to touch on. In the past, I have asked this board about the reinstatement of said employee involved in this case. And just so the public is aware, I did finally ultimately get an answer that it was upon the recommendation of the superintendent, without the board voting, that individual was reinstated. The board found out about it in executive session because it is a personnel matter. However, it was never on the board minutes for executive session, and it was never mentioned and never noted there. In addition to that, I just heard about a lot of policies that are happening here for district staff. What happens to those contracted staff members? There are other bus companies that are involved. Is there something written into contracts for the contracted staff regarding these type of actions? I also heard in a different topic about looking at facilities. I know Mr. DiDonato mentioned some things going on at some schools with sidewalks. And I did speak to Dr. Smith last week about one of my major concerns. My daughter is a student over at Timberlane. I am extremely concerned about the lack of ADA accessibility at Timberlane. There is no way to navigate from that Timberlane parking lot down to the track for an individual with a mobility impairment. There is no way to exit the gym at Timberlane and get down to the track if you are a child with a walker or in a wheelchair. So I am recommending that the facilities look at that, about creating a ramp, some type of sidewalk and ramp from the parking lot that goes down to the track. Not just for my child, not just for any other children there. That is a deterrent for those who are coming to watch their children, their grandchildren in track meets, in any kind of sport event that's happening down there. The only pathway they have is a sidewalk that ends, which then becomes grass and gravel, or they have the entire gravel walkway to have to walk down. I've done it. Our Special Olympics track program practices there. My daughter in her wheelchair had to wheel from the parking lot over that terrain down to the track. So I hope it's something that the facilities will consider looking at.
Thank you, Ms. Ham. Does anyone else have any comments to make? Okay, seeing none, public comment is now closed. thank you, Ms. Ham, for bringing up the accessibility issues regarding Timber Lane and the track and the gym. That is definitely something we should review with finance and facilities. The staff policies, I mean, I can have Mr. Sawicki or Dr. Smith talk about policies a little bit more in depth, but contracted staff also is part of the policies that we've been working on. And I don't know whether we want to, I'll leave it to you to comment on the issues regarding the case.
So just I'll start from the bottom too. Mrs. Ham, since we met, I did go out, we looked at it. So as part of the facilities review or annual review, we've talked about it. Obviously, I think you've been in touch with Ms. Gianfredi too, so we're looking at that. So just to clarify, there are two regulations that they're basically identical. 3281 is for teaching staff members, and then 4281 is for staff, and that includes support staff. So that would be falling under contracted, but we can certainly, as we look through this, make sure that that is more specific in there, that is the contracted staff are also included in that, like bus drivers. The case, absolutely, and if I could just say to Mr. Cookman, if I have not said it before, I mean, there's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about this case, plain and simple. I mean, on all levels, on all people involved, you know, not that people get, you know, we've lost countless hours of sleep and worry about all of those involved. So I apologize if I have not made that clear through this. You know, as was discussed, the staff member has been removed. That was done based on my recommendation to the Board of Education, and the investigation is absolutely ongoing.
One thing that might be helpful for Ms. Ham too, regarding the contracted staff, their training, they are trained on all our policies when they are contracted, correct?
Correct, but you know, we have a number of contracted bus drivers, and if there's a sub, it's not always. I think what we will do as part of this is make sure and distribute this to along with our bus contracts. I think we could do that, and just as an expectation.
Okay. So but now I'm looking at more than just bus contracts.
No, any contracted servant.
Anybody that comes in that provides an evaluation within the district, any medical professional, any occupational therapist, physical therapist, anybody that comes into the school that's contracted by the district.
So they would be under the support staff, under the staff portion of the regulation. The other side is just the teaching staff members. So
I can make some comments on some of the things we heard, at least with regard to reporting procedures. Regulations state that staff members who believe he or she had or may have witnessed behavior which violates what's in the regulation is required to report that to their supervisor or the building principal, and that failure of a staff member to report conduct they know to violate policy and regulation will result in appropriate disciplinary action. So we do have statements of that nature in the regulations. I think, you know, not speaking as the current policy chair, but we'll see what happens at the what happens with reorg. I'm sure policy will be continuing to look at things that belong in the policy. With regard to removal of a student, I would say that's something we should ask the administration to research, just because I know there are some circumstances where we have courses where there's only one teacher for that course. So we have to understand what it means in that context. So
I would suggest if there were an issue,
of course,
this wouldn't be.
Certainly.
Anything else? Okay. So at this time during the meeting, we're going to go into executive session. Any pending or anticipated legal or contract negotiations in which the public body is or may become a party, and any matter falling within the attorney-client privilege to the extent that confidentiality is required to preserve the attorney-client relationship. We will go into executive session for the review of harassment, intimidation, and bullying matters, a student matter, and a personal matter, employee 7833. Action will be taken after we go back into public session. May I have a motion, please, to go into executive session?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? Motion carries.